So in this chapter, we're going to be talking about the body clock, the waves of periods when certain enzymes and hormones go up and down in the 24-hour period, and how to make these corrections of when we're out of sync with our body clock, and how to treat jet lag. Okay? So what we want first of all is to have a look at the body clock. And the body clock is the superficial flow of energy in the Chinese medicine of the different meridians of one meridian passing the energy to the next, to the next, to the next. And what we know is that each meridian has a 2-hour period when it has a greater amount of energy than at other times. So all meridians have energy flowing through them. This qi, which as we saw comes in through the umbilicus, is then channeled through the 12 paired meridians and the 2 central meridians. But it goes in a wave. So at any one time, there's always energy in your liver meridian and in your lung meridian. But at the moment, it's small intestine time. So the small intestine will have a greater amount of energy in it than the other meridians. So it's like a flow. It's like a wave on top of the normal rhythm. So at this period, 2-hour period, we will have a greater amount of energy than at other times. Now, each 2-hour period is set to standard time. Okay, now we know we are lucky here because we are in standard time. Our standard time is measured from 0 degrees longitude, which goes through Greenwich. So it's called Greenwich Mean Time, but that's standard time. Now in the summer months, we set our clocks 1 hour ahead, not our bodies. We set our clocks artificially 1 hour ahead. Our bodies don't know that that's happened, but we do, because the news at 10 becomes the news at 11. Okay, so we change our body clock, but we change our external time, but not our body clock. So when we move our head an hour, we change these times. So large intestine time still remains 5 to 7, but because we set our clock artificially ahead, it will become 6 to 8. All right? So stomach time will become, from 7 till 9, will become 8 till 10, and so on. Right? But luckily at the moment we're in Greenwich Mean Time, we're in winter time, which is our standard time. So if we can look along here and we see small intestine is 1 to 3. Now I'm looking there quite carefully because at the moment the clock is registered 5 to 3. So because we're very close to Greenwich here, you know, there's no real vast distance between here and Greenwich, we will find our body clocks will change at 3, maybe a little bit after 3, but practically at 3 o'clock. So we'll get 1 to 3. After that, we'll go to bladder time. In other words, the bladder will have more energy than the other meridians. Other meridians will still have energy, but not as much. So then we go to kidney, then we go to circulation sex, which is more to do with the steroid hormones than anything to do with sex, but it's when the steroid hormones are at their most. Triple warmer, which involves the metabolism, mainly the thyroid metabolic rate. Gallbladder, which is everything to do with fat metabolism. And then liver, 1 to 3 in the morning, and the lung time. And this explains why people get their symptoms at particular times of the clock. So one of the symptoms, one of the questions you ask when you take a case history is there a time of the day when your symptoms are worse? And if they say, oh yes, stomach time, lunchtime or dinner time, the likelihood is it's because they're eating something which is not agreeing with them, or the period of time after that. But they may say, ooh, I wake up every night. How do you sleep? I wake up a lot. I wake up and I hear the church bell ring. What time is it? Oh, it's 2 o'clock. And I always wake up around that. And I say, well, is it the church bell that wakes you up? No, no, no. I wake up and then I hear the church bell. Something wakes me up at 2 o'clock. It may be between 1 and 3. What happens after 3? Oh, I sleep all right then. Okay. So this would tell you this person's got a problem with the liver. In the liver time, when the liver's getting more energy into it, they're having problems dealing with us. Now we find when we test the meridians, there's always 2 meridians that show up. And if it happens to be these 2, which are close together, approximately liver and lung, the night is one hell of a struggle. 1 o'clock till 3, 3 o'clock till 5. After 5 o'clock, they pop off to sleep, and then the alarm goes, and they feel awful, okay, because they get their deepest sleep at that time. So anybody who has liver, lung times are going to get their major symptoms during the night, which means they're going to wake up. Now the lung is involved with its physiological process, which is oxygenation. So if your oxygen level drops during the night, your brain wakes you up because it thinks it's dying, okay, and makes you take a few gasps in, and you think, well, and maybe particularly if you've got a bit of sleep apnea, you then start gasping to get oxygen in, which is why, thank heaven, it does wake you. You know, be grateful that you wake up, because you might not wake up if you didn't do that between 3 and 5. If you've got a bit of a tickly cough, you've had recent cough going around a lot, people hack, and they wake up in the middle of the night and the throat's dried out and you start to cough. And you just got to wait till 5 o'clock. Have a sip of water regularly, wait till 5 o'clock, and then it's all over. 5 past 5, you'll fall back to sleep, okay? But in the same way that 3, you'll probably wake up and you'll cough for a couple of hours. It's awful, but luckily you know that it's all over then. So what we do is, one of the questions is, what time of the day are your symptoms worse? Oh, you know, they're much the same all the time. Okay, that's fine. But if they go in cycles, if they're worse in the mornings, worse in the afternoons, worse at night, this is a reason for it. Years ago at an osteopathic meeting, we had to ask questions, difficult questions of a speaker, and he said, put the question on what bugs you as far as your patients. What's the sort of hardest question, what you can't deal with in a piece of paper, and we'll put them in a bucket. And when they were opened up and read out, there were all sorts of questions in it. But one of the ones I remember, and this has got to be 30 years ago now, how you treat patients who have pain at night time. Do you jump into bed with them? Do you muscle test them at 3 o'clock in the morning, do a home visit, or do they come and see you and so on? Very difficult. They don't have symptoms much when they come and see you during the day, but they're worse at night time, and this is difficult. So can you change the body clock round there? But this will help you to see and to test this person at this particular time. Okay? They will show, everybody shows these problems up when their symptoms are worse, and that's when you want to treat them. Now in kinesiology and functional biochemistry, we miss a lot of problems with people because they're not exhibiting their problems when they come into the treatment room. It's a bit like trying to treat a lady for heavy, painful periods when she's in the middle of the cycle. You don't see it, do you? Because you don't see her at her worst. So what you've got to do is the same thing. If the patient's problem is worse at night time, it's no good examining them during the day without turning them into the nighttime meridians to see it to show. Toxic metals are a good example of this. Toxic metals very rarely come out during the day. You know, they don't eliminate from the day. But they may come out at kidney time or bladder time if they're coming through the water solubles, or they come out through the liver at night time. Now I always joke, if I wake up at liver time, 1 till 3, sometimes I wake up with an awful nightmare. You know, I don't often get nightmares, but occasionally if I have an awful nightmare, and you think, where the devil has that come from? And my reaction immediately is, it's something I've eaten, isn't it? And Jill said, no, it's your emotions. You've gone to bed with something worrying you out. I said, it's not, you test me. Nothing like testing each other at 3 o'clock in the morning. You know? I've had this dream about that. And luckily it's usually the broccoli. No, actually. For me it's the potatoes usually. You know, because I'm a green. You know, it's simple, basic stuff. I ate those roast potatoes on a Sunday evening with the Sunday giant. Lovely it was. But they had solanine in, you know, they were lovely newish potatoes, and you can't see whether they got the solanine. The newer the potato, the higher the solanine content. And there's a, you know, the thing with solanine is it's a level. You can have one, you can have a tomato, you can have a few potatoes here and there. But when they build up and you don't break that solanine down and it reaches a certain point, a threshold point, bang. It's like the tyramine we talked to in the previous chapter. Same thing, it reaches a critical point and bang, the symptoms come on. That's when you need to antidote it. 3 capsules of lemon balm, slept like a top the rest of the night. Okay? But if I hadn't woken up at that time, I may never have known about that horrible dream I had. But I wonder, it woke me up because I needed to wake up. It woke me up in a way to, you know, get me to oxygenate, and in that case to detoxify. It made me detoxify. So very, very important, all green people here should go home with a packet of lemon balm. You may never need it, so it's first aid, but it's useful because if you do overdo it and you think, ooh, don't feel too good, I feel really toxic, tired for no apparent reason, lemon balm will be the answer most likely. So the energy flows clockwise. It goes from one meridian to the next, to the next, to the next, always in a clockwise. Okay? So here we are flowing. I usually start testing at large intestine time, which is first thing in the morning. So 5 till 7 in the morning. And then we go to stomach, 7 till 9, spleen, 9 to 11, heart, 11 to 1, and so on. So we're now looking in, we're just after 3 o'clock, so we're now entering into bladder time. So the bladder has a particular function, and that's to pass out water. Okay? So if you start this afternoon at the coffee break or the tea break there, wanting to go to the toilet more than this morning, that's normal, right? Because it's a good time. But it also means that it's what's called a water element. So in the 5 elements of the chart, we have different elements which spin round, which are couples. And the couple of the bladder is the kidney. They're both water elements. So energy passes from the bladder to the kidney, but some energy will spin back from the kidney to the bladder. And both these are water ones. That means right now, as we're 3, you should all be drinking water, because you're going to absorb and utilize that water better now than at any other time during the day. Okay? So if you've drunk water this morning, it's okay, no problem, good, but it won't do as much good as it will now. So drinking water for the next couple of hours is going to be a good thing, okay, because it's going to help to flush you through. And that flushing through will flush you through of water-soluble toxins. So when people show up to bladder and kidneys, we tend to think, this person's probably got something they're trying to flush out of the system, and they're not doing that very effectively. Could be heavy metals, could be chemicals, etc. Things that irritate the bladder. You know, there are some chemicals irritate the bladder. No infection in there, just interstitial cystitis due to chemicals, particularly toxic metals passing out at that time. So we're entering into bladder time. Now, how do we determine what's the time? Is we use the alarm points. Now, the alarm points are when this meridian has energy problems. Usually it's considered it has less energy in it than at any other time. They're called alarm, indicating alarm, 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 there's a problem with this meridian. Now, not all these meridian points are on the meridian associated with its name. So as we begin to get into our meridians and know that, we're going to really think, yes, it has a name, but what's its physiological function? What does it do in the body? You know, when Chris talks about a particular meridian like the liver, what does he mean? Does he mean the organ of the liver? No, I mean the physiological function of it, which primarily is detoxification, the getting rid of toxins. What is the primary function of the lung? Is oxygenation. Is to get oxygen into the tissue. That's its physiological function. So the meridian is more what we think about as its physiological function and its relationship to brain chemicals that we'll see that govern the body and regulate it, than the actual name of the organ. So let's have a look at where we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at a person, and we're going to go around their body clock. So has anybody travelled from abroad just recently, either east or west? Anybody flown in from America or Russia or... Now, anybody wake up in the middle of the night? Good, we've done you, done you. Okay, you, what time do you wake up? What? Oh, you never look at, okay, you're the person we need. We'll tell you. Okay, come on down here. Okay. So what we're going to do first of all is we're going to get Jill to test you that your body clock is correct. So if we all have a look at our watches now, it's certainly 3:05. So we're between 3 and 5, which in the afternoon, PM, which means we're in bladder time. The bladder should have more energy. Okay. So one muscle test, she's strong? Yes. With the muscle. Okay, now she's going to touch the bladder meridian point, which is literally just on the top of the pubic symphysis. So everybody dive down and feel their pubic symphysis on yourself. Okay, so you're on the top, the suprapubital part, not on the pubic symphysis, so just literally above that. So that's the alarm point for it. Okay, so she's touching it. Now test the leg. Fantastic, that's exactly who we're looking for. This should go weak, okay, which would indicate her body is set to GMT, or correct time. So at the moment she's not set, which is fantastic. This is exactly what we want. Her body clock is not in the rhythm. Okay. Now, when Jill and I go to Los Angeles, which is 8-hour time difference, because they're 8 hours behind us, okay, we will leave on the flight at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and we will get there at 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening. Okay, amazing for 8-hour time difference for a 12-hour journey, because they're 8 hours behind. So in reality, we've traveled for, you know, maybe 12 hours, so that will put you 4 o'clock in the morning, okay, GMT, okay. So you get over there, of course, at 6 or 7 in the evening, get to the hotel and you think, we'll go down to the restaurant and have a meal. So we go down to the restaurant and have a meal, and one of my delights is to have an American New York strip, which is a steak. Maybe I should have said that. Okay, it's a steak. And so you have a nice steak. I do. You're sensible, you have fish, you do. Okay. And then we have something to, with that, no dessert or anything like that, and go to bed usually because we were pretty tired by that time. And it sits there, and it sits there, and it sits there, and it sits there. And I think, why is it sitting there? Because, you know, it's evening time when you should normally be having your meal. The problem is my soul is in Los Angeles, but my body is still set to London. Okay? So it's saying it's 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, Chris. This is not the time to have a steak because there's no stomach acid. So that's a very good example, isn't it? So you have food when the stomach, when the digestive system works, and you don't want to have steak or food when the digestive system is quiet. Okay? So it's the wrong time to do that. So everything works in rhythms. Cortisol, for instance, as a hormone, raises between 4 till 6 in the morning, early in the morning, to help elevate our blood sugar level so we don't wake up with a hangover and headache and things. And then you get a little bleep again 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, so you don't get that drop in your blood sugar 2 or 3 hours after lunchtime. Okay, but where have you gone? This is the thing. So we don't know where she is in the world. Where she is in her body clock, we don't know. What we want to do is to be able to correct it. So what we used to be able to do, or first of all, is to go to the regulator of the meridian systems, which is called governor vessel 20, which is on the top of the head between the ears, just behind the anterior fontanelle. So if we drew an imaginary line from the ears on the sagittal suture there, that would be the point called governor vessel 20, which is called the home of 1,000 palaces in Chinese medicine, or the regulator where all meridian systems go through. So this will reset the body clock. But when we reference the bladder and tap GV20, it doesn't make any difference. It doesn't bring her back into the time. So what we do is we go to the couple, the alarm point of the coupled meridian, and the couple to the bladder is the kidney. Okay? That's how they are on the pulses on the wrist. When you come to look at the pulses, they're in couples. Okay? So the couple, or the 5 elements, to the bladder is the kidney, and when we're in kidney time, the couple to the kidney will be the bladder. All right? When we then move on to circulation sex, the couple to that is the triple warmer, and the couple to the triple warmer will be the circulation sex. So it's exactly as they are on the pulses. Each meridian has a couple. So the alarm points for the kidney, which is the couple, are on the tip of the 12th rib. So in this case, they're bilateral. So we have to therapy localize or touch or reference the kidney points bilaterally, and then you're going to knock hell out of her on GV20 with your hand firmly, no nonsense. Okay, nice firm tap at about twice a second, okay, for about 60 times. So that'll take you about 30 seconds to do it. And then you'll recheck the body clock and see if she's back into Greenwich Mean Time. Have you travelled abroad recently? No. No. So if you travelled abroad recently, this is how you make the correction. So what you do for the jet lag is you therapy localize or touch with your right hand, okay, if you're right-handed. Okay, if you're truly right-handed, so this is not you, Anna, you're truly right-handed, you touch the alarm point of the couple to where you should be. So this is why I always tell people to do this at 6:30 in the evening, and because wherever they are in the world it's 6:30. If they're in summer saving time it's 5:30, but it's still kidney time. So if they touch the bladder point, which everybody knows where the pubic symphysis is, and then they tap GV20 themselves, okay, they'll reset themselves into local time. Okay? Now, truly right-hand people touch the point with their right hand and tap with their left. Truly left-hand people do it around the other way. But make sure you are, right? So now go back to the bladder. So take that one off. Make sure she's on just above the pubic symphysis there. And let's see if she's back in time. Hooray! Welcome to London. Okay. So at least we can now start putting it back, because at least she'll now start secreting hydrochloric acid at stomach time and at meal times, cortisol in the afternoon. So this makes a big difference. She'll probably sleep better because she wakes up, because heaven knows when she's waking up, her stomach is probably saying, hey, I've got a dose of hydrochloric acid coming, give me something to eat. How do you feel when you wake up?
Sometimes okay, sometimes.
Yeah, do you feel hungry at all?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. She can eat in the middle of the night because her stomach is saying, probably I'm secreting something and I need something to mop it up. And sometimes people just, a glass of water will send them back. Sometimes they need a little bit more. I'm surprised the number of people say, I can't see. So I get up and make myself a cup of tea. It's about the worst thing, isn't it? Because it's got caffeine in it, which is a stimulant. But they say, well, I put milk in it. And that milk lines the stomach, and then it's got something to work on. Okay, so that's the alarm points. So everybody feel confident. We have a body clock sheet which we give to patients. So when they travel distances, and particularly long distances. Now I find, and I think Jill found the same thing, the long trips east are the worst. So going west, you don't feel too bad. Going to Los Angeles, we find, okay, it's just a long day, tend to sleep on the plane, and you can make it through the night as such, and still go out a little bit in the evening. When you go east, it just knocks you, because you're losing time. Even though you sleep for 12 hours, you still just, when you arrive in Sydney, all you want to do is go to bed. You've had it. And then what I find is I just wait, let my body just wake up when it's ready to wake up, and as soon as I can do the therapy localization and tap myself back in. But if you've got a patient, you don't want to give them all these points. Okay? Give them just one point on the sheet, which is the bladder, because they all know where their bladder is. If you show them where pubic symphysis is and how to tap. Okay? Remember to tell them, and it's on the sheet anyway, if they're right-handed, they tap with the left hand. If they're left-handed, they tap with the right. Because it doesn't feel right to do it that way round. But if you don't do it that way, it doesn't work. It's to do with polarity. Okay, so now let's have a look. Now time correction. So the standard time now is called in Chinese medicine the horary point, or the clock point. We call it the now time. And it's normal for people when they've got a problem, which we all have, for the now time to positively therapy localize if they're in the body clock right time zone. So in your case, you didn't therapy localize to the bladder meridian, so you're out of time. So we tapped you back into time. When we find out everything that is wrong with her and give her the right remedies and make the right corrections, her now time will no longer show because there's not a problem there. So the now time is normal to show, but it's an indication there is a problem. Okay? Because always, if something weakens a person, it's something that's detrimental. If something strengthens from weakness, it's good. So in this case, we know that when we've corrected everything in the body to get it back in balance, the now time will no longer show, okay? Because they'd be back in perfect harmony. But that rarely happens, particularly on the first visit. Okay, so that's, and how to test the now time. Therapy localized the alarm point for the current or horary period. Are we all happy with what that means, horary period? 2-hour period in time zone. Look at the clock now. Take into account summer saving time if it's applicable. Test the muscle. It should weaken. Now time correction, right-handed people touch the opposite point to the now time. I call that the one time, W-O-N as opposed to N-O-W. Right? So the one time is not a Chinese terminology, but it sounds like that, doesn't it? One time. So one time is the opposite. So it would be the alarm point for the coupled meridian. And then tap GV20, which is like the regulator of all the meridian system, up on the head, between the eye, between the ears, 2 times a second roughly. Doesn't have to be exactly that, or 2 hertz as we call it, for about 30 seconds, which gives you 60 taps.